Hey. How's everybody doing? Everybody good? Welcome to the local church. Like my beautiful wife said, we have the honor and privilege of pastoring the local church, and it really is something that, I grew up in it. I saw what my dad was a pastor. I saw the day-to-day, everyday stuff, and it has been so great because you see things that you want to implement and things you want to tweak a little bit and then put in. But for us, this really is like our second home. I mean, it's what we talk about more, I would say, more than anything other than our kids, is what we talk about the local church. So I want you guys to know that you guys are on our hearts. We pray every day for you. This is something that I am very excited about. She has her weeks mixed up. So we have 2 weeks before the Untouchable series. And this is something that I thought it was I went through like the full, I'm sure there's this process that you go through when it comes to an idea. For instance, they say the grieving process and you have the different steps. So for me, I thought this was a great idea to do the Untouchables or the Elephant in the Room series. And then I am in my office, my study, my video gaming room, and I'm sitting there, and then instant regret came up that I even said to do the Untouchable series. And then I got excited about it, and then there was an unsureness about it. And then this whole process. So for me, it's something that I have wrestled with, I have dealt with. I truly believe that it's something that needs to be addressed, something that everyone thinks about, but yet nobody talks about. And that's where here's what we believe, here's the issue, here's what we believe, here's why we believe it, which is a key thing that I feel like in 2019, most people have forgotten the last step of that. That you can't just keep going on, well, my parents went to church and they were strong Christians, so I'm going to ride their Christianity. That is not the case. So it's not just knowing what you believe, but then why you believe it, but then how we are supposed to act, how we're supposed to treat people, how we are supposed to combat things. Because I think where the people have it mixed up is we cannot fix people. God can. But when we shun people or we turn people away or we condemn people or we try to fix them, that's where hurt happens. That's where issues are created and gaps between people and relationships are created, and you're not able to truly help people. We're not here to fix people, we're here to help people. Because we know the one person who can fix them, and that's not us. So I'm very, very excited about that. I have spent on the topic side of it, I have gone all over the place, just with my thought process, my inner circle, my middle circle, my outer circle. I'm going to people. There's a guy that he's since changed it, but it might have been after a conversation we had, but it said on his Instagram profile, it said, if you want to talk about church hurt, just let me know. And I was like, I do. Why wouldn't I? And so we talked. I've got some great ideas from him too. Just I don't want to assume that I know what everybody's thinking or how they're thinking. So needless to say, I'm very, very excited about that. That is coming up in 2 weeks. I want to thank Hunter for speaking last week. I don't ever get sick, but when I do, boy, I really get sick. I spent 23 out of the 24 hours on Tuesday in bed, and so Hunter jumped in last minute for me, so I hope it was good. I watched the video. If it was half as good as it was online, then I'm assuming that you guys were blessed by it. So I am finally back in the swing of things, because first off, great offering word. You should, I was going to say pick more weeds, but You gave me no credit for the first time, by the way. I was out there too. Do you not remember that? You're just forgetting that I was out there? No, the first time we did it. Obviously doesn't remember. We had very meaningful conversation. It was great. But that is so true in challenging yourself. And that hit home for me because I am a creature of habit. I used to make fun of my granddad, and then I made fun of my dad, and now I am him. So we were out of the country. We got back on a holiday weekend. The holiday was 4th of July. And then I got sick, so I'm just now feeling like I'm getting back in that routine and that rhythm. So I want everybody to do this for me before I start. First off, this message is called Freedom. And I want you to rewind in your mind back 1 week. Right around 4th of July, boom, this message is going to hit well. I was very excited about it. I had it all planned out, and then I decided to just sweat profusely while sleeping for 48 hours. So, we're talking about freedom tonight. So I want you to go back. If it's like, man, he's really patriotic. First off, I am. And second off, just go back then, because that's when it was for. So right around 4th of July time, that's where you're at in your minds, okay? Everybody can get there because it's 100 million degrees outside, which is miserable. Is this bad? Is that the feedback? Is this the feedback? Come on, light guy Larry being sound guy. I got to come up with a new name for you, because light guy Larry doesn't work when you run sound. Okay, so talking about freedom. Let Freedom Ring is more than just a patriotic song, but it's a mantra for not only America. It's not the greatest theme of America's freedom, but it should be for Christians also. Freedom. What does that mean? What does that look like? And how to find it? It's the message of Christ. It's love, grace, and mercy. But what's hard is freedom. There's good freedom and bad freedom. And the reason I say there's good freedom and bad freedom is because of what you do with that freedom. What's difficult is that in America, there are freedoms that, as Christians, put you into bondage, or as people put you into bondage. But this is something here. It's how do we find that freedom, that true freedom, to leave something and have it left, be done with it, to move on, not to come back, not to keep looking over your shoulder for it, but to truly be free. There's no other thing when I think of America and the 4th of July. You think of the fireworks shows, which I'm very judgmental, and I learned this, and I've worked on the Lord to help me, but I'm very judgmental of the DJ's playlist during the fireworks show. You know what I mean? Keep Katy Perry out of it. Okay? Stop. Just play Toby Keith, any Toby Keith song, and it works. But I'll get back to that. I've asked for forgiveness. We're good to go. So America was established, and a new government was formed to bestow liberty, to bestow that freedom. It's what men and women have laid their lives down for, is our freedom. But many people live as prisoners, shackled by painful pasts, enslaved to present fears, and tormented by the endless cycle of failure. Being free and truly running is what we're called to do. Running our race, not worried about what's happening beside us, but truly trusting in God and living in that freedom, that there's freedom in boundaries. It felt like such an oxymoron when I was growing up. But it does make sense that you don't have to worry about getting outside of the boundaries, just run free inside of those. So, don't normally do this, but I got an acronym. Okay? I know. Very, I was about to say some word about being a wordsmith, but I didn't even have one there, so here we go. F is for forgiveness. 1 John 1:9. But if we confess our sins to him, he is faithful and just to forgive us of our sins and to cleanse us of all wickedness. Here is where true freedom begins, is in forgiveness. Both ways. That God's forgiven you and that you forgive other people. Because when it comes down to it, if you have not forgiven your dad for what he said, or that teacher for what they said to you when you were in elementary school, or that friend that stabbed you in the back in high school, how can you truly be free if you're harboring that forgiveness or that unforgiveness? This is where true freedom begins, is in forgiveness. R is relationship. Religion brings bondage. God never wanted bondage, but relationship. R is for relationship. So the life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Our founding fathers came from a place that was an oppressive religious place. So when they came here, there was a burning desire to live where they could be free to worship God as they saw fit. A lot of our important documents are framed around their love of God. One nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. But then there's also the separation of church and state. This is something that has gotten so skewed lately because there's the separation of church and state. I think what's hard is the argument today, whether it be that the 10 Commandments are in the courthouses or that we can pray in schools, that they can talk about evolution, but then it's intelligent design and not creation. And there's all of these things, but that's not what it was originally intended for. It was originally intended for the opposite, that the state wasn't going to meddle or be a part of or have their hand in the church. So here it's that finding that freedom is in relationships, but it's having relationships with people, with like-minded people. Not worried about all of the things that are happening around you, but truly to have that relationship that you trust people, that you love them, that you look out for them, that you help them. I mean, there are so many things. I don't know if there's a decision. I would say daily decisions are the only ones that, first off, we rarely make a decision without talking to each other, me and Cass. But then when it comes to big life decisions, we have that inner circle, or that we have relationships with people that we can throw something out to them and just see how it sticks. You got to have that friend that you can talk through things, that you can say whatever you want and it does not matter because they're not going to look at you any different. You need those people to truly have freedom. So with the separation of church and state, like I said, it is not backwards, or it is backwards from what they had it from. It's not keeping the church out of the state, but keeping the state out of the church, because they wanted one nation. They wanted unity. And that's where that relationship is built. E is for emancipate. To emancipate is to be free from bondage, to bring liberty, to be free from restraint. Isaiah 61. The Spirit of the sovereign God is upon me, for the Lord has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. He has sent me to comfort the brokenhearted and to proclaim that captives will be released and the prisoners will be free. Emancipation sounds like a great idea, and instantly a great idea. So, January 1 of 1863, the Emancipation Proclamation was proclaimed. But just because it was proclaimed did not mean that it was immediately obeyed. It was actually almost 3 years later, in December of 1865, that the 13th Amendment was entered into our Constitution and became law that slavery had been abolished, that slaves were able to decide their own fate. But what's so interesting about this, and when I looked at it here, it's that Every headline in the newspaper talked about this amendment, talked about abolishing, or the Emancipation Proclamation and abolishing slavery. But what's interesting is a lot of slaves didn't actually leave their masters. They decided to stay where they were. They didn't leave where they were from because that is something that they knew. It's something that they were comfortable in, that they actually knew. So while it was a great day for America, it was a very strange day also. So they weren't leaving and trying it out on their own or claiming their own destiny. A vast majority of slaves actually just kept working for their masters like there was never a law that had freed them. Nothing had changed. Shelby Foote wrote a book called The Civil War, and I want to read one statement from there. And it said, and here's what the slave said. I don't know nothing about Abraham Lincoln except he say that he got us free. I don't know nothing about that either. What's hard is we have the word, we have God's forgiveness, God's mercy, and God's grace, but yet there's still things holding you back. There are still things that are entangling you. There are still things that have chained you up to staying right where you are and not moving forward, to right where you are but not moving past something. That you have the knowledge that you know, but yet you don't believe it, or you don't know it's true, or you would say you don't know anything different. I mean, I think about this time, and had to be such, like putting yourself in the mind of a slave. I can't wrap my mind around, this is all you've known forever. And now you're free. What does that even look like? So there might be something in your family that has been passed down from generation to generation to generation, and you don't know what that even looks like to move forward. You don't know what that looks like to move past whatever your family has dealt with, but yet I promise you that the Word has your back, that God has your back, that there are promises of God that you can stand on and know that He's looking out for you, that know that things are going to work together for good, that you know that everything you put your hand to prospers. All of a sudden, you got a little bit of confidence when you're going to try something new, when you know that everything you put your hand to prospers. Standing on those promises and knowing and trusting God is huge. E is for exterminate. Exterminate means to destroy and completely wipe out. There are so many people that were celebrating freedom on the 4th of July while sitting in bondage. So many people were sitting, dealing with their past while celebrating freedom on the outside. Now, while we live in America, we have freedom, but I'm talking about freedom on the inside, to truly be free, to be you, to not be who you think you're supposed to be or what social media says you're supposed to be or what, it does not matter. Be you. I think what's great about 2019 is we're accepting more things, or stuff is more widely accepted. For instance, I have a tattoo on my forearm. I don't know if that would have worked 20 years ago. But that's the world that we live in. So it's okay that you're a little bit weird. We all are. Trust me. Some more than others. But we're weird. That's why I can stand and I thinking about that, I can do the Untouchable series with confidence because I know what I believe and I know why I believe it and I have the word to back it up. But how are we just going to ignore things? How are we going to act like stuff isn't there? Ignorance doesn't fix anything. Acting like something's not there does not mean that it's going to go away. There are things that have to be addressed and things that have to be given to God and let Him work it out. We can't fix ourselves. If we could, we would, and we can't. So at some point, we got to give that part of our life that will give God 95% of our life, but this here, nope, this is for me, I'm going to fix it. It doesn't work like that. You're still dealing with it. Whatever age you are, insert age, you're still dealing with it. Don't look back in 3 years and still be dealing with the same thing that you're dealing with today. Give it up to God and let Him help you and move forward. Galatians 5:1. We're still in exterminate. So Christ has truly set us free. Now make sure that you stay free and don't get tied up again in the slavery of law. Don't get tied up again in the slavery of law. Don't get tied up in the legalistic side of church. Don't get tied up in what people's opinions are on social media because it happens to be election season. Here's the good news. No matter who is in office, God is in control. We don't have to worry about it. Yes, you still have a civic duty. Yes, please still vote. Know what you're voting for and then vote. Be educated, be informed. But when it comes down to it, it does not matter who is in office. God is still in control. God is still calling the shots. We don't have to worry about what is going to happen here and what's going to happen there and what is it going to look like if this happens or if that happens. It's almost like the people on TV or the news people just like hearing themselves talk, so they just say things because they know that they can talk about that for an hour and then keep going. And that's where you have to tune it out. I personally am not a fan of social media. Not a fan of the news either. I go over to my parents' house. Fox News is on the TV literally every day. And I'm like, Dad, that's why you're always mad. Like, what? I would be too. What in the world? Like, everything is bad. Nothing's going to work out. Nothing's good. Here's what's interesting. Most of the news is opposite of the word. Most of it is. You truly can be free. God is still in control. Everything you put your hand to prospers, but nothing formed against you ever will. There's a new outbreak or whatever, virus going, whatever it is they're talking about. No, I am healthy and whole. Nothing missing, nothing broken. I pray that over our kids every night. Lord, I think no calamity, no sickness, or no disease will come near them. But I'm not going to let just whatever is happening, I'm not going to let fear spark because I want that true freedom. So let me read that again for exterminate. So Christ has truly set us free. Now make sure that you stay free and don't get tied up again in slavery to the law. D is for decision. Decision. When we talk about freedom, it's interesting to note that God has even given us the freedom to choose. He's given us the freedom to choose. Galatians 5:1. Again, I guess I repeated that. So Christ has truly set us free. Now make sure that you stay free and don't get tied up again in slavery to the law. You can make that decision not to get in it again. So in 1829, there was a man named George Wilson who robbed the U.S. mail, and in the process, ended up killing somebody. So he went to jail for murder. Somehow, his friends got together and ended up signing a petition and then giving that to the president, who was the only person who could pardon him. So through pressure at this time, he was pardoned of his crime, meaning he did not have to he got the death penalty. So they all got together, they signed a petition, sent it to the president signed it, and boom, the pardon was there. So they brought the pardon to him, and they were excited, his friends did. Look what we did, look what happened. He looked at him and said, I can't accept that. Went through courts, went to the Supreme Court. There was a Supreme Court Justice Marshall, that ended up making the ruling, and he said that a pardon cannot be official or cannot be completed if it is not signed by the person who's pardoned. Wrap your mind around this. You commit a crime, you kill somebody in the process, you go to jail, I'm assuming that you've just accepted what's going to happen, that you're going to be put to death. Your friends get together, you get a pardon, the president actually signs it, and you say no. So he was executed while that pardon was still written out on the warden's desk. He never signed it. He made a decision. We have freedom to make decisions. O is for opportunity. America is known as the land of opportunity. What so many people go after the opportunity for success and the American dream. That American dream that everybody goes after. You can make whatever you want of yourself. That you can do whatever you want to do with your life. But they miss the opportunity to experience God's grace. That is not someone I want to be. That is not someone that I want you to be. Someone who is working so hard and moving forward so fast, but yet miss the opportunity for God's grace. What's crazy about that is with God's grace and God's mercies, it doesn't make sense. You remember the last thing that you did when you messed up. You're going to remember every detail about it. But the Bible says that you ask and you will be forgiven. That God doesn't even remember it. That he tears it up and throws it as far as the east is from the west, and the east and the west never meet. But yet, you are still keeping yourself in bondage over that decision that you made or over that mistake that you made. That's what's amazing about God's grace. I got a lot of stories in this one, so I want to apologize if you're not a story person, but I have a few. Just want to show you guys how cultured I am and how well-versed. There was a prisoner in Sydney, Australia that tried to escape from jail by climbing under a delivery truck when it came in to deliver bread, and then just hold on and ride the truck under the cab as it went out. So he formulated this plan, and he was ready, and the plan was that he was going to get under the truck and he was going to ride until the next stop, and then he was going to get out and walk. Boom, he's free. He's able to roam. He's able to do whatever he wants. There's freedom is what he sees. Delivery truck pulls in. The delivery man is pulling all the bread off and taking it in, and he sneaks over and gets under the truck. Truck starts up, truck drives out. He's thinking he's home free. It actually worked. 4 miles he rode under that tree. He had to be hot, sweaty, dirty, nasty. 4 miles. Truck finally comes to a stop, engine shuts off. He waits a few minutes, drops down from the truck, gets out from under the truck, looks up, and realizes that he is in another prison 4 miles away from his prison. Bummer. I mean, like you actually did it, and then you just went to another prison. But just like that prisoner, our attempts for lasting freedom often leave us in another prison 4 miles down the road. That's what we do in life, that we work so hard to finally break out of something or get away from something only to end up right back in the same situation. He went through all of that, risked life, risked longer time being in jail, all to just go from one prison to another. There isn't freedom in that. It's finding that true freedom. Often our attempts at freedom from our sins and with God leave us dejected and dirty and in another prison. This shouldn't surprise us because we cannot save ourselves. Only God can. And then the last one is M, and that's mercy. Mercy is to be compassionate to one under your authority. God's mercy is never ending. His grace is never ending. The act and the punishment don't add up with God. What seems like a social norm or social standard for the punishment for whatever event or act that you did isn't the one that God has for you. So I want to encourage you with this as we talk about freedom, ending with mercy. God has given you mercy, but you haven't given yourself mercy. But you haven't given somebody else mercy. That God's forgiven you, but you can't forgive somebody else. And that is ironically only holding you back and not the other person. How does that make sense? It doesn't. So at some point, you need to forgive to be able to move forward to find that freedom. And at some point, you have to forgive yourself. You messed up. Bummer. Big deal. Move on. It's not worth it. It's not worth being stuck in the same place in 3 years as you are today. It's not worth it. All because you can't forgive yourself? Well, you don't know what it's like. I know, but trust me, I've made a lot of mistakes. There are still things that I have to remind myself that I am forgiven and I have forgiven myself for. But when it comes down to it, the nuts and bolts, it's only affecting you. It's only hindering you. It's only stopping you from moving on to that next level. What if unforgiveness was the only thing holding you back from that promise that God has given you, that promised land? What if? It might be, it might not be, but I promise you, as soon as you forgive somebody, you're better for it. Life is better because of it. But let's find that freedom, that true freedom, not the freedom outside, but the freedom inside of ourselves. So real quick, I'm going to go over the points again. It's forgiveness, relationship, exterminate, emancipate, decision, opportunity, and mercy. That's how you find freedom. Start with one and just move down the list. Finish up at mercy. Here's the harsh reality. You have no idea what somebody is going through. So why in the world would you hold them to a standard that you've set in your mind of what you are going through or what you have been through and hold someone to that standard when they've never been what you've been through? But you also have no idea what they've been through. They might be literally going through hell, and you're going to get upset with them because they cut you off on the road. They are fighting for their marriage, but you're going to be mad because they cut in front of you in line? Because they didn't say hi back? I mean, we can get as petty as you want. We have no idea what people are going through. People are hurting. How in the world can we hold them to a standard when we don't hold ourselves to that standard? So start at F and go all the way down to M and look and find how all of a sudden you're in that freedom.